In the high-profile trial of Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes, prosecutors have been trying to prove that Holmes intentionally defrauded patients and investors by making false claims about her company's blood testing technology. Holmes has pleaded not guilty.
This company is about being able to change the healthcare industry.
As prosecutors continue to make their case, speculation has grown about whether Holmes will take the stand.
All these witnesses we've heard from have said how they were totally enamored by her. They totally believed her. She had a presence that controlled a room.
To catch you up on 3 key pieces of evidence presented at trial so far, and a look at what's to come, we talked to Wall Street Journal reporter Sarah Randazzo, who's been covering the trial in California. First, audio recordings have given jurors the chance to hear Holmes pitch Theranos to investors in 2013.
The ability to take a technology like this and put it in flight, specifically on a medevac, has the potential to change survival rates.
We're hearing Elizabeth Holmes touting how they can do all of these things with the machines, how they're working with the military, and the military is huge for them. And so all of these things that at this point the jurors have heard contained a lot of falsehoods and weren't quite true. And so now they're hearing Elizabeth Holmes say it directly, which is pretty powerful.
Some investors said Holmes's promise to help members of the military compelled them to invest in the company.
In cross-examination, attorneys for Holmes have made the case that Theranos investors should have asked questions if they had concerns.
And that they knew investing in a new type of technology, like the kind Theranos was developing, came with risks.
Prosecutors also read private text messages between Holmes and her former boyfriend, Sunny Balwani, who is the number 2 at the company.
There's a lot of text showing Sunny and Elizabeth texting about concerns or things that they're worried about.
In one 2015 message, following media appearances made by Holmes, Balwani wrote, "FYI, I am worried about overexposure without solid substance, which is lacking right now." Holmes responded that the media coverage helped Theranos get a business deal.
It's important because a big part of this trial is showing Elizabeth Holmes's intent and that she intended to deceive. So if jurors can come to believe that she thought there were a bunch of concerns, but then publicly was saying nothing was wrong, that can help them in their deliberations.
The defense has argued that Holmes relied on Balwani for accurate information about the company, and that she believed she was telling the truth about Theranos. Balwani, who faces his own separate trial, has denied any wrongdoing. Another key piece of evidence shown by the prosecution, an allegedly forged endorsement.
This document, emblazoned with the Pfizer logo, purported to show that Theranos' technology had been validated by the pharmaceutical giant. But prosecutors say it was used to deceive investors.
What's come out is that they did work with Pfizer in the very early years of the company. Pfizer then had a scientist, Shane Weber, analyze everything that they'd seen and internally write a report that concluded they didn't want to pursue the relationship.
Weber said he himself told Holmes that Pfizer wasn't interested in working with Theranos. But about a year later, Theranos put out a report with the Pfizer logo on it, which Holmes used to pitch to investors.
Some investors testified that they took the report at face value, and that it played into their decision to invest many millions of dollars.
Of course, there's been plenty of other evidence presented at trial so far, which you can read more about at WSJ.com. So what's next in the closely watched trial? The defense will soon have a chance to make its case, and it could go a few different ways. As lawyers suggested in a court filing, they could argue that Holmes was in an abusive relationship with Balwani that left her under his control.
A lawyer for Balwani disputed any allegations of abuse.
Or, as the defense argued in opening statements, it could continue making the case that Holmes simply had a startup that failed, like many others in Silicon Valley. The defense could also simply rest, hoping that prosecutors didn't prove Holmes' guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
I think it's going to be a bit of a surprise, and shock moment in court when they stand up and say whether they're calling someone or just, resting the case.
Holmes is facing 12 counts of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud, with the top charges carrying a maximum federal prison sentence of 20 years.